Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop, and today we're going to be talking about what's in my bag. So I'm just going to be doing what's in my rotation. So what shoes do I take as backups or shoes that I really have been liking to play in for the past couple of weeks. So yeah, the thing that's been a little bit more important to me for some reason is cushion, you know what I mean? So I'm a guard, and I usually like to play in a very responsive cushioning setup. But for the past couple of weeks, I've been wanting a little bit more cushion for some reason. You know, something a little bit more bouncy, something a little bit more comfortable, something that has a little bit more compression underfoot, which I usually like. But sometimes I also want like a responsive setup, something a little bit stiffer feeling. But I guess none of these are like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, if you guys do want to get any of these shoes, I try to leave in the free link in the description box. And of course, again, like if a shoe is not in my rotation, it doesn't mean it's bad or anything. It's just like, again, these are the shoes that I've been liking to hoop in for the past couple weeks, right? So yeah, let's get it started right off with the Jordan Tatum 4. So the Jordan Tatum 4 is absolutely amazing. I really love playing in this shoe. And it's just a really fun shoe to play in. And the thing that I really like about this shoe is the cushioning setup. So the cushioning setup is really freaking comfortable, but also it has a really nice kind of like a responsive feel to it as well. You know what I mean? It's not super soft, it's not super plush, although it is, right? So it's using a Cushlon 3.0 foam. It's full length, and also we have a very large volume zoom unit here in the forefoot. It seems to be top loaded as well. So in the forefoot, it's really soft. You know, there's a nice bit of compression, and the zoom unit pretty much encompasses the entire forefoot as well. So because of that, the entire forefoot is really nice. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times Nike or Jordan brand, when they give us a forefoot zoom unit, it's just a really small targeted one. You know what I mean? Like this like half circle one that's found in like the PG ones or the Sabrinas or the Jaw 2s. You know what I mean? But with the Tatum 4s, it's literally the entire forefoot. So that feels extremely nice. It has a little bounce as well. It's not super bouncy though, like a Zoom strobe unit, but it has a nice little subtle bounce. It's more just a really soft feel, right? And then also here in the heel, we have a nice bit of compression too, because it is using Cushlon 3.0. And also the strobe board that they're using is like, it's like a cloth, like a textile material. And especially once you break it in, it has a nice soft feel there too. And impact protection is great, right? I never had my foot hurt or anything. Even on like the harder landings, harder impacts, my foot was fine. So it's just really fun because of the cushioning setup. It's soft, it's comfortable, and it has a little bit of bounce. Impact protection is great. Core feel is still pretty good. It's not amazing like, you know, the Sabrina 3 or something like that, but it still has pretty good core feel, right? And the traction is really nice. And because of the core, like cleaner quartz, I've been having really good stops as well here in the Tatum 4. It does pick up a little bit of dust though. You know, when it's like, when it was summer or when it was a little bit drier, it did pick up a little bit of dust and didn't have the best dust performance. As far as the upper goes, it has a really soft feel, right? And compared to the other shoes in my rotation or in my bag, I guess, this is a little bit more softer feeling, right? First of all, the entire sole of the shoe is really soft, you know what I mean? And it's able to flex a lot too. So it's a really soft, nimble feeling shoe. And it all depends on what you like. You know what I mean? And for me, I usually like playing in softer feeling shoes as well, but also sometimes I like to play in something a little bit stiffer, something that has a little bit more of a springy or explosive feel, you know what I mean? But anyways, not only is the sole of the shoe really soft, but also the upper is extremely soft as well. Like once you break it in, look at this, super duper soft, but it still has like adequate support. Like it has more of a supportive feel than, you know, its previous shoe, like the Tatum 3 and also like the Sabrina 3, the Jaw 2, Luka 4s and stuff like that. So it still has a little bit of a supportive feel, but again, it's more softer, you know? The one thing I don't like, however, is the durability, you know what I mean? Or I guess the quality of the upper material. Like, what is this? You know what I mean? It's pilling a lot. So not a huge fan of that, but again, once you break it in, it does get pretty dang soft, you know? So, yeah, and also as far as the weight goes, this shoe is pretty light, if I remember correctly, right? It comes in at 11.4 ounces, right? So it is on the lighter side of things. So this is a really fun like shoe to play in. Great lightweight, comfortable shoe as well, you know? So yeah, there is a Tatum 4. Next, of course, we got a shoe that has a little bit more cushion, which is the Jaw 3, right? So I've seen a lot of people hooping the Jaw 3s on the basketball court. I feel like I've seen these a lot, you know? So I guess it's super popular. Maybe it's because it just looks dope, you know what I mean? But also, I feel like Jaws have always been super popular though, you know what I mean? It seems like Jaws signature shoe line is almost just as popular as when Kyrie was with Nike, you know what I mean? Like I used to see a whole bunch of Kyrie 1, 2, 3, you know what I mean? So anyways, the Jaw 3 also has a very nice, well-cushioned feel, and it's really fun to play in too, right? In terms of court feel, this is a little bit worse than the Tatum 4. The Tatum 4 is a tiny bit lower to the ground, but the Jaw 3 has a tiny bit more cushion, right? So if you're looking for a little bit more impact protection, something a little bit softer underfoot, then the Jaw 3 is a great option. I would say for like underfoot cushion though, it's pretty comparable, but I feel like overall impact protection, like especially if you're heavier or like I guess like you're super athletic and doing really hard landings, the Jaw 3 I feel like it's gonna be a little bit better for impact protection, right? It is using a hybrid ZoomX midsole, and there is a nice bit of heel compression, although it is very caged, right, for the actual midsole. So the overall cushioning setup is super duper nice, right? The traction also is really nice. Again, it does have a little bit more of an inconsistent feel though, you know what I mean? Like even when I'm playing on a super clean court, on some really hard stops, it would just kind of like slide out a little bit, you know what I mean? So it only happened to me a couple times, and it wasn't terrible where I felt super unsafe, but it just happened to me a couple times, so I'd say it's a little inconsistent, right? However, for the most part, it has a very nice bite. And then for the upper, it definitely feels a little bit thicker and a little bit stiffer than like, you know, the Tatum 4s, right? So that does make it have a little bit more of a stiffer, more kind of like, I guess, cozy feel, especially here on top of your forefoot, but it's still really soft though. Look, it's just still like, once you break it in, it does get soft. Like it conforms to your foot well. It doesn't feel like super stiff or rigid, but it just feels a little bit more like thicker and a little bit more supportive than the Tatum 4, right? And also the bottom of the shoe is definitely a little bit stiffer as well, right? Especially for the torsional support, right? Compared to the Tatum 4, like look at this. You know, the Jaw 3 is definitely a lot stiffer. It's still able to flex in the forefoot, however, and it has a little bit more of a springy feel as well. So it feels a little bit more explosive, kind of like out of your first step. So yeah, the Jaw 3 is still a really fun shoe to play in, right? Next, of course, is the Don Issue 7. So this shoe is really freaking fun to play in, but I only take the shoe if I want maximum cushion, right? So the Don Issue 7 is definitely the most bulky feeling, right? So out of all these, right, the Tatum 4, the Jaw 3, the Don Issue 7 definitely feels the most bulky because, you know, the upper is definitely the thickest. It's like a double layered material, and even like the shroud by itself would be kind of thick, you know, but it's really comfortable though. It's extremely comfortable, super cozy, and now that it's colder, it keeps my foot a little bit warmer, I guess, you know what I mean? So I don't mind it as much. And also, not only is the upper thicker and bulkier, but the cushion is a little bit more on the well-cushioned side of things, but I guess it would be a little bit more on par with like the Jaw 3s, you know what I mean? So in terms of like actual midsole compression, you know, it is using a Light Strike Pro, and it does have a nice bit of pound. So it's a little bit soft. There's a little bit more heel compression, it feels like, than the Jaw 3. Just a tiny bit though, just a tiny bit. Underfoot cushion is still extremely soft though. Once you break it in, it's really, really soft. I would say it's actually a little bit stiffer though compared to these shoes, because like I even though I am like average weight, you know, I can feel the cushion compressing right underneath my foot a little bit more than like the Don Issue 7. However, once I start going, then there seems to be a little bit more cushion. I don't know if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because like if I'm just standing around, the actual like barrier to feel the cushion underfoot, I guess maybe the stroke board is a little bit stiffer here in the Don Issue 7. Because of that, it feels a little bit stiffer. But again, once I get going, because the Light Strike Pro, like this foam is a little bit thicker maybe, it feels like there's a little bit more compression from like when I'm jumping and playing, you know what I mean? But still a really nice, well-cushioned setup. The traction also is really freaking nice. It has a great bite, and normally it picks up a little bit more dust, you know what I mean? But again, because of the past couple weeks, it's been humid, I've had really, really good traction with the Don Issue 7. And it just has a really nice kind of like cozy, soft, supportive feel as well. You know what I mean? Like the overall upper is cozy, but also the sole of the shoe is a little bit more on the stiffer side of things, comparable to the Jaw 3. Right? But it's still able to flex here in the forefoot though, right? So again, the sole of the shoe feels pretty similar to the Jaw 3. And then last but not least, we got the Wow 12. So I've been playing in this shoe, and this shoe has been freaking phenomenal. So it has I feel like it does everything really well, as in like it's a really good, well-rounded or all-around hoop shoe, you know what I mean? So the traction is freaking phenomenal. When I got it at first, it was picking up a little bit of dust, so that kind of was a little bit disappointing, but it wasn't terrible. However, because of the really clean courts and it's been very, very humid, the traction has been freaking phenomenal. It stops pretty much just as hard as flows. You know, it has a really, really nice hard stop. So the traction was phenomenal, right? It's using GCU for the actual outsole material. It's not rubber. And then for the cushioning setup as well, I would say it's a really well-rounded setup too, right? So in terms of court feel, it still has pretty good court feel, but the underfoot cushion is still really soft, and it's using full-length super boom. So because of the actual foam, I feel like it has a nice like quick bounce to it as well. It's not super duper bouncy like, you know, a full-length Zoom Strobel unit. I guess if you take like a full-length Zoom Strobel unit and kind of like half the bounce, that's what you would get here in the Wild 12, right? So it's a little bit more subtle, but it still has a nice bouncy feel. And impact protection was great as well. But the thing that I like about the Wild 12 is that it has a nice kind of like springy feel. You know what I mean? Like it's springy. So like out of your first step and stuff like that, it does feel explosive, but it's still like able to flex and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I feel like it blends kind of like a stiffer feel with like a more flexible feel really, really well. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but again, it has a springy feel while still being able to flex, you know what I mean? So that's one thing that I really like too. And then the upper also is, look at this, it's so thin, it's extremely minimal. I haven't really had any issues with durability though, like nothing's ripping, nothing's tearing, even though it's a really soft and thin material, you know? So yeah, and also this shoe feels overall extremely lightweight. Let's check the weight. It comes in at 11 ounces, so this is probably the lightest. And then I think it was the Tatum 4, it was like 11.4 ounces for the Tatums. And then the Jaw 3 is 11.65, and then the Don Issue 7 is definitely the heaviest, right? Coming in at 13.1 ounces, right? So yeah, the Wild 12 has been extremely fun to play in. I've really, really enjoyed playing in this shoe. So yeah, this is kind of like my rotation for the past couple weeks, you know, and I feel like, again, I've been biasing something a little bit more well cushioned because I don't know, I'm getting older, maybe that's it. But again, I do enjoy playing in shoes that do have a little bit more of a responsive, stiffer feel, but none of these are like that. I guess besides the Wild 12, but it still has a very nice, well-cushioned setup. Just feels a little bit more responsive and a little bit stiffer compared to all these shoes over here, you know? So anyways, that about concludes this video. Tell us what your kind of like rotation has been for the past like couple months or for the past year, or maybe just tell us your favorite hoop shoe down in the comment section below. And also, again, if you guys do want to cop any of these shoes, I try to leave in the free link in the description box. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.